Hey all, Scott here. The Wii U is about 3 large footsteps away from the grave, and I thought it sounded pretty neat to kill time before it goes kathunk in a casket by having a Nintendo Switch wish sesh. So, here is my Nintendo Switch wish list. Everything I want to see from the next generation of Nintendo. My main wish with the Nintendo Switch is that it's a clean break from the Wii U, and don't get me wrong, I like the Wii U. It was quirky and fun. Alas, it did have a cornucopia of problems. It wasn't up to snuff with the competition, wasn't really attractive, and didn't give me much reason to come back. Oh, and it's gonna die a lonely sub-30 frames per second Breath of the Wild riddled death. To be fair, a lot of those traits sound similar to describing somebody you're pretending to like, but in reality you wholeheartedly despise. I hate the Wii U. The Switch already seems to be taking on a whole new direction for Nintendo in almost every way, which is pretty nice. One of the biggest problems with the Wii U was that it was a mess. The thing had so many accessories not only for it, but inherited ones from the Wii. The Wii U not only supported almost every Wii accessory, but required Wii remotes for some games. That just overcomplicates things. Just have the standard Switch, the Pro Controller, and we're golden. I'm honestly just tired of the Wii and Wii U era, and I just want the controllers to simply die a horrible death alongside them. I mean, these controllers are coming in at 10 years old at this point. Yeah, they connect via Bluetooth, means they'd be wicked simple to implement into the Switch. But I want new toys to play with. I don't want these hand-me-downs. Because I want the Wii Remote to be retired, I hope the Joy-Cons on the Switch have motion controls, so motion-based games can be played straight out of the box. Because some games just work better with motion. Games like Pikmin are to die for with pointer controls. I just don't want to use a 10-year-old controller to enjoy games like that. I want to use new controllers and leave the accessories and problems of the Wii and Wii U in the past. Oh my god, I want this to feel like 2017. My online purchases on the Wii U and 3DS are still tied to the console. What century is this? An account system or cloud storage is desperately needed, and a use for My Nintendo would be appreciated. System-wide achievements feel so at home on Nintendo consoles, it's honestly blasphemy that they never appeared on the Wii U. Nintendo gamers love 100% in games for no apparent reason. Give them incentive to do it or reward them for doing it. And I understand why Nintendo didn't implement My Nintendo features into Wii U and 3DS games, because that's just disrespectful to do to corpses. But I feel like implementing My Nintendo and missions into Switch games gives reason for My Nintendo to exist while also satiating that lust for achievements. How about that Mario game, huh? That moment I saw it, I knew this was a real 3D Mario with more open and detailed environments, and oh boy, you can't forget that triple decker of a jump Mario was performing right there. Obvious, real 3D Mario. My main wish is that this new 3D Mario is a new galaxy in everything but form. Mario Galaxy is definitely #1 on my top 10 neat games list, but I want to see something new. Galaxy was so great for me because it was something so fresh and new, but true to what made Mario such a great franchise. I want this next 3D Mario to be something like Galaxy, in which it is an entirely new concept and houses clusters of innovation, but still, it's a 3D Mario game at its core. A ton of people are at a murderous state of anarchy when it comes to speculating Retro Studios' next big title. While most people are speculating a new Metroid or revival of an old Nintendo relic or a new IP in general, I'm going to add a dash of cynicism to the mix by saying I bet it's going to be a third Donkey Kong Country. Don't get me wrong, DKC Returns and Tropical Freeze are pretty banging games, but after years of getting mostly 2D platformers from Nintendo, I just don't really want to see another Donkey Kong Country game from Retro right now, and I feel like everybody is on the same page. But Retro made 3 Metroid Prime games, and Donkey Kong Country Returns outsold all 3 Metroid Prime games combined. So I think there's not much reason to believe Retro would stop at 2 Donkey Kong Country games when they made 3 Metroids. Now, that's what I expect. Now, what would I want? Of course, I love to see Retro go back to Metroid, revive an old Nintendo relic, or create a new IP in general. I think that's the hip thing to want these days. But of course, that leaves DKC alone when it is, in fact, one of Nintendo's big franchises. Wow, Monster Games ported Donkey Kong Country Returns to the 3DS and assisted development of Tropical Freeze. They are a talented bunch. They developed Excite Truck and Excite Bots, and they ported Xenoblade to the new 3DS. I think I would be perfectly fine with them overtaking development duties of the Donkey Kong Country franchise, with Retro supervising or helping out here and there, while Retro goes off and does something new. I would sorta times 100 be okay with that. 2015 was a year of quantity over quality for Nintendo. That's where we saw some grade D titles such as Amiibo Festival, Chibi Robo Ziplash, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, and games like Metroid Prime Federation Force and Star Fox Zero announced. It just seemed like Nintendo took these beloved franchises and just forgot what made them beloved to begin with. Now games like Paper Mario Color Splash sorta follow this trend,
but me alongside many others didn't mind the game, and that new Pikmin side-scroller coming out, it ain't Pikmin, but it could be okay.
But Nintendo, please bring these franchises back in the way they deserve to be brought back. Don't reincarnate 1080 snowboarding as a Fortune Street knockoff. Amiibo is about to turn 3 years old this year, and with this anniversary, I must say with brevity, Amiibos blow. Specifically in 2015, it felt like Nintendo was saturating the market with not only these things, but seemingly rushed Amiibo games in the forms of Chibi Robo Ziplash and Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. A couple games nobody cared about with overstocking stores everywhere with obscure Animal Crossing and Smash Brothers characters, and it's pretty safe to say Amiibo have lost its luster. But wait, this can be salvaged. I would dig all Nintendo games to have superfluous Amiibo support in the same vein as Mario Maker, Smash Brothers, Yoshi's Woolly World, etc. These games utilize most Amiibo figures and give you a reason to own more than just your favorite characters, while not alienating those who have not dipped their feet into the Amiibo tub.
Nintendo needs to reward the fans who have spent thousands on these figures by supporting most released Amiibo in most games, but keep this support to small things like costumes, so then you can perfectly enjoy a game without the things.
However, I feel like there needs to be one Amiibo mandatory game per year. I think the collaboration between Tecmo Koei and Nintendo could lead to something like way past okay. Alright, get this. A warrior style game where you can scan in any Amiibo. Neat, right? Alright, in terms of the perspective department, Nintendo is hemorrhaging creativity. 2D started to become the standard for Nintendo games after a while, and instead of feeling like a design choice, it just felt like a choice made because 2D games are cheaper to develop for than 3D. I'm honestly tired of 2D Nintendo games, but I don't think they should go away entirely. Them going away entirely is the reason we got nothing but 2D games for the past few years. I think there needs to be far more 3D titles than 2D titles, say 30% 2D, 70% 3D, and satiated I shall be. There has been a plethora of leaked information about the Nintendo Switch available online before the big January 12th event, so I might as well address the rumors. One of the biggest talking points is this Rabbids Mario crossover RPG that's being rumored. And may I humbly say that I saw this coming from a mile away. And if we convert miles to years, that brings us to about 9 years ago. And then I told him, if a president should be anyone, it sure is Donald Trump. Oh, hi! My name is 11-year-old Scott Wozniak, and I'm doing the whole being 11 years old thing with relative aptitude and luxury. Well, I was about to slip into my Aeropostale graphic tee and play some $1.99 distractions on my iPod Touch when I came to think, man, wouldn't it be beast if there was a Mario and Rabbids crossover RPG in 9 years? Sigh, a man, or should I say 11-year-old boy, can dream. While it does supply a hearty dose of bizarre to the supposed Switch lineup, I'm not completely against the idea of a Rabbids Mario RPG. My problem with it is that I see no true game between Ubisoft or Nintendo with this venture. I feel like any way you slice it, Ubisoft would have supported the Switch, so I think it would have been more beneficial for Nintendo to court third parties that may have been more hesitant to support the platform, like EA or Square Enix, and offering to do a crossover with them. That way, they become acquainted with the hardware, and their crossover do relatively well since it would be with a Nintendo franchise on a Nintendo platform. Alas, I am keeping an open mind. This just isn't anything I'm gleefully giddy over. We are also apparently getting a surplus of Wii U ports to the Nintendo Switch in the forms of Mario Kart, Mario Maker, Splatoon, Smash Brothers, and Xenoblade Chronicles X. Now, these ports aren't necessarily wetting the entirety of my whistle, but I am completely for them. You see, with the use of DLC, a lot of these games feel a lot newer than what they really are. A lot of them are coming in at 2, even 3 years old. So I think having an upgraded port makes a lot of sense, because my hankering levels are pretty low for a new Mario Kart or Smash Brothers. And I think just porting existing games with new content and all the existing DLC included is a pretty smart move. So good one, Nintendo. Here's what I want to see in these ports. I'd like to see 2 to 4 new cups, around that number. Mario Kart 8 already has 48 tracks in it, so I think we could probably go up to around 60 or so before it starts to feel a little too diluted. Absolutely cream the old battle mode in the face and replace it with a new, finely tuned one, throw in some new characters and maybe a mission mode, and we're off to the pretty bangin' peninsula. Don't focus on weapons. I dig Splatoon, but I felt like the original had way too many weapons, and a solid 40% of them could have been axed due to them being so similar to other ones. I say focus on new maps, modes, more single-player content, better local multiplayer, and the triumphant return of Splatfest.
Mario Maker is an odd duck simply based on the fact that the Switch has been confirmed to be a single screen experience. I always thought the conjunction between doing your own thing on the gamepad and having others gawk at your creation sesh on the big screen was a big part of the Mario Maker experience. But as you saw from the release of Super Mario Maker for Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo has no problem taking what we thought was integral aspects to Mario Maker and giving it a tug. I would love it if Mario Maker had more art styles. I always thought it would be sick to have a Super Mario 64, Sunshine, or Galaxy style in which they would play and look as if those games were 2D. Or they could just throw in the Game Boy games and that would be alright. Of course, slopes, more power-ups, and maybe hidden collectibles or user-created achievements for each level. The possibilities are simply endless for Mario Maker, which makes me hope they continue supporting the game once it arrives on the Switch with continual updates and additions. This one's pretty simple. 3DS and Wii U versions smacked together, and oh me, oh my, we have ourselves a winner. Throw in 2 to 3 new characters, maybe a few new stages, and I feel like most would be satisfied.
And you can sure count on me for being one of those most. I gotta be honest with you, I don't really care about this one. I'm not an RPG guy, but for some reason I bought the collector's edition. It came with a neat DRM riddle flash drive. Cool, right? But please let me know what you wish to see on not only the Nintendo Switch presentation coming up on January 12th, but the Nintendo Switch in general. Please let me know. Well, everybody, good luck out there, and see you later.